Hello, welcome to RJ, the Story Guy. I'm RJ Mirabal, and recently I finished writing a series of books, a fantasy series called the Rio Grande Parallax, set in the high desert of New Mexico along the middle Rio Grande Valley. But there's another New Mexico in this story, and that is an alternative place where it's more ancient, everything's on a larger scale, and as we say in New Mexico, it's enchanted. I think you'll find this interesting, and I hope you'll enjoy these little 10-minute readings that I'm going to be doing. My main purpose is to get you interested in my books and to read them for yourself. And so I'm going to read the first several parts over a period of, I don't know, I haven't figured out all of the dimensions of it, but it'll be 10, 12, 15 parts. And at a certain point, I'll probably condense it a little bit. It's going to be kind of relaxed and casual, as you can tell by the way it started. And then the story, as far as what I'm reading to you, will come to an end so that you can read the rest for yourself. I hope you find this interesting. And so let's start, without any further ado, on the prologue to the Tower of Il Serrohe. Out on a lonely expanse of seared meadow that stretched across a mesa above Valle Abajo, Don stood in twilight, transfixed by the approach of an odd figure. A tall, lanky man, leaning so far forward, his head seemed to glide just above the ground. A wide, toothless smile, at once singular and voracious. With arms apparently clasped so tightly behind, he appeared to be armless. A voice behind Don exploded in a harsh whisper. Hey, what are you doing? Don't just stand there staring at the Crotalman. Come on! Sprouting hands in the semi-darkness, the voice grabbed Don, pulling him toward a hole in the ground. No! Don cried, wrestling himself away. I'm not going into some gnomon hole again. I'm staying here. What's a big deal anyway? This guy looks okay. Sort of. That guy is Slicktooth of the Crotalman clan, and he needs to feed, Nursite hiss. It's into the hole, or into his stomach. Which would you prefer? Don peered at the hole. After the last time, he promised himself he would not willingly go again into the claustrophobic home of his new friend Nursite. He raised his head and looked around. Slicktooth was approaching with surprising haste, and the forest was too far away to make a run for it. Trust me, you don't want to engage Slicktooth in conversation, Nursite whispered. It'll be short, and it'll be your last. Don stared into Nursite's eyes. He seemed different since the last time Don had seen him. As best as he could see in the fading light, those beady little eyes held fear, anger, and total sincerity. He knew the essential battle within himself would not be resolved this evening. So, for now, he would follow his instinct, trust the little guy, and go down into the hole. Steeling his mind against rising panic, Don felt his shoulders brushing the sides of the tunnel. He wound his way slowly, awkwardly, following the sound of Nursite's movement. He could hear the other gnomon scurrying through the tunnels toward the hiding places. The downward slant leveled out, forcing Don to bend almost double to avoid the lowered ceiling. They continued out, twisting left and right through countless junctions. At last he felt Nursite's hand on top of his downcast head. Stop! Reach out to your right. You'll find a small hole on the wall, shoulder high. Don gingerly reached out to the wall, trying not to gain too much information in this cramped, humid tomb. He found the hole as its edges crumbled under his touch. Climb up in there, Nursite said. It's too small for Slicktooth. It's too damn small for me, Don cried, suppressing a slob. Not again. How quickly can I get out of here? Can I even find my way out? I'm in too deep. Slicktooth will eat you. There's no option, Nursite added. I'd rather be eaten than to be alive down here, Don mumbled. At least it'll be all over with quickly. Not with the Crotalman, Nursite said. It's a slow death in his stomach. This place is like the wide open plains compared to his stifling poison. Wouldn't he kill me first? No, came the reply. Don could swear he heard Nursite's brain whirring as he thought about what to say next. You don't want to know. It's too horrible for me to say. This hole is far better. This part was originally a Lupaman room, so it's roomier. I'll stay with you. Now be quiet. Nursite sounded so confident that Don began climbing into the hole, Nursite boosting his butt with a push. Don really didn't want to be touched. Nursite slipped in behind him. Inside, by Don's reckoning, the hole was about 2 feet high, maybe 4 feet wide, and 8 feet deep. In spite of the soft earth of the passageway, the ground here was hard, with fist-sized rocks that pushed painfully against his ribs. Move all the way back, away from the passageway, Nursite said. Don did his bidding, sobbing softly, with each shallow breath. Laying about 3/4 over on his face and stomach, he didn't want to feel the wall or the ceiling. He could, of course, feel the constant rain of water vapor molecules and atoms as they piled up upon him. Nursite groped around, finding Don. Placing his hands gently on Don's shoulder near his neck, he spoke calmly. We'll just relax here. Slow our breathing. You'll hear him shuffling about as he passes in the tunnel. He will not be able to reach us. Okay, fine, Don whispered back. Just don't touch me. There was a long pause. Don tried to quiet his sobs and deepen his breathing. Now you know how Don's feeling right now. Any of you that are claustrophobic and you hate an elevator or a little closet, especially with the door closing behind you, this is how Don's feeling right now. Okay, back to the story. Nursite added one more thing. We must not talk or make any sound with voice or body. Don knew that was purposely misleading, as if Slicktooth would not know they were there, even if they were quiet. Nursite was trying to give him hope. Calming himself, Don brought back fond memories of playing as a boy in a big sunny backyard in Peralta where he lived. The towering sunflowers, bushes big enough to double for jungles in his childish brain. And with the overarching cottonwood spreading ancient branches, almost as thick as its trunk, as its cool shade fell in a dappled pattern of light and shadow across the spacious yard. This calming reverie was rudely interrupted by a sound like dry corn husks dragging across gravel. Slicktooth was coming down the tunnel. He could hear the sound of slow breathing. Not his or Nursite's, as both held their breath so deep inside it would take a conscious effort to resume breathing, if the chance ever came. Now the corn husks were across from him, behind Nursite. Slicktooth must be testing the sides of the passageway. Don's heart thundered in his chest, trying to pound its way out. Surely Slicktooth could hear that. Nursite patted his shoulder softly in reassurance. I told you not to touch me, Don raged silently. Just as Don's lungs were about to burst, the sound of corn husks began dragging away along the tunnel, loud, without stealth. Slicktooth must have found the tight entrance to their hiding place too hard-packed to crumble. Don let himself breathe, but with short little puffs, almost silent in their exhale and inhale. He's moving on, Nursite said. We must stay here for a while. A specially trained team of Gnomon will vacate him soon enough. They cannot kill Slicktooth, for he's too big, but he will be appropriately discouraged. We will hear other Gnomon moving about once it's safe. Don thought about that, though, as they waited. Okay, fine. But once I'm out of here... And so that ends the prologue. Well, I hope that enticed you to continue to listen. Next up will be the first chapter, which will start us back a little bit before this. What I read to you for now actually is from about a fourth of the way through the story. But earlier, we have to meet this Don Vargas is his full name, and see what there is about this reluctant hero. And how did he get to this strange place called the Valle Abajo? Until then, see ya.